Hey guys, get it?
We get it. Iron Giant. Haha.
Mr. Just roll the intro.
And now, a Lunch Bites with Lainey retro review.
Iron Giant was a different experience because this was a movie that's been out for a while. I've tried repeatedly to be able to see it in its entirety, and I've never been able to do that. And I showed it to you and Colton a couple weeks ago, and actually got to watch the whole thing. Do you want to set it up?
Sure.
Okay.
The Iron Giant is about this little boy who is finding the Iron Giant, which is a big robot, basically. And he doesn't want anyone to know about him because he thinks that other people might be afraid of the giant robot because he's different.
Right.
But there's one person who does know, well, technically two because of him, his friend Dean.
Right.
And he met him from the cafe that his mom works at.
Right. And the little boy's name is Hogarth, I think. Right? It's Hogarth. Interesting name. And you're correct. He finds the Iron Giant, and he hides the Iron Giant because people are looking for him.
Right.
And they're afraid of him. They think he's from another world, and they assume that a creature from another world or a robot from another world is naturally going to be evil
Scary.
and scary. And so the little boy finds that that's not the case at all with the Iron Giant. And like you said, the only person that knows about him other than Hogarth is Dean, who Hogarth befriends, and he meets him at his mom's, the restaurant that his mom works at. And we've talked a little bit in here when we talked about some of the other characters in movies. E.T. comes to mind. E.T. is a creature from another world, and people are, at the beginning of E.T., are looking for him too.
Right.
I'm not sure in that case they necessarily assume he's bad, but we don't know. They're looking
Right.
to find him and see
I
what
don't
there's
think
about.
they know if he's going to be scared
Right.
or not.
Okay. So as this movie progresses, there is a point where the Iron Giant does turn kind of violent, right?
Yeah.
And why is that? Why does that happen?
Because the people from the army and the boat are going to shoot out a huge bomb. And that's where the Iron Giant is. But they were trying to get him to go the other way where none of the people will get killed because that bomb is aiming for him
Right. You know,
wherever he goes. So he tries to save it, but he also kind of shoots at the boat to try to stop it.
right. A little bit earlier in the movie, he fights. He fights the army and the different and the tanks and what have you. And that's because he is programmed to be a machine of war, but he comes back. He comes back out of that. And if
Right.
you remember, do you remember why? What brings him back?
Hogarth?
Right. His friendship with
Because-
Hogarth, and he recalls that, and that's able to bring him back from being that. So he's learned a new programming.
Right.
You know, he was programmed to do certain things, and because he develops this friendship with Hogarth, he's able
He's
to, you know,
able to learn
he
different
learns.
things.
Exactly. He learns and adapts. Now, there's something I want to bring in here because you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy and the sequel to Guardians of the Galaxy. And there's a character in there that both you and Colton really like a lot. Who's the character?
Groot.
Right, Groot. The person who does the voice characterization of Groot is the same person that does the voice characterization of the Iron Giant. And it's interesting. I think, and this is a compliment. So the actor's name is Vin Diesel, and I want this to come across as a compliment. Both characters do not say very much. Groot tends to say, it's the same line over and over again, and he's working with the same line, but he's able to use his vocal abilities and the intonational line to make you understand what it is that Groot is trying to get across. With the Iron Giant, again, he doesn't say very much. He has very few lines, and it's mostly a vocal sound that he gives, these guttural sounds and what have you. With both characters, for me anyway, and I don't know how it is for you, but both characters, I'm able to understand them and care about them a great deal, and he does not have a lot of lines to work with to make that happen. Now, what do you think with regard to that?
I think that's really cool because Groot, and its complement, Groot and the Iron Giant both have different sounds. And it's like, to me, it's impossible to make that happen, even though it's the same person doing Groot as the Iron Giant. So it kind of...
Yeah, it's really interesting because the similarity is that
they don't talk
a lot. They don't have a lot to say.
But they're different.
Right, and he's
They're
able to
total
create
different.
very different characters for them, but
Right.
but both have the commonality that you care a lot about them and you root for them and you come to understand that they're very intelligent. You know, they're both very intelligent and they know what they're doing. And again, I think it goes back to that E.T. thing, or even, you know, we've talked about Bumblebee from the Transformers at different times, and they have this quality of, at first you see them like a pet, and then you realize, nope, this is a smart being and what have you, and you come to understand that they're...
It's almost like everyone is different, and they look just different from us.
Right.
But they're still almost like a human.
Exactly. So they have intelligence, they have feelings, they have thoughts, and you're able to follow that. In all these characters come across with little or no words. In Bumblebee's case, he doesn't say anything. He's able to communicate through his radio. And E.T. just through a few words that he learns in his gesturing. And it's the same thing with the Iron Giant and with Groot. So it's limited. Okay, did you have a favorite part of the movie?
I don't know. I think, though, my favorite is when the hand was walking around in the house, because the Iron Giant has a satellite on his head, and all the other parts of his body connect to it. So they all come crawling in.
Well, so set it up though. There's a scene where he gets hit by a train, and
Right.
he's broken into a million pieces, and we think that's the end of the Iron Giant, right?
Right.
But what happens?
Then the satellite goes on, and all of his things
All his parts.
come into the farm where,
Hogarth lives.
yeah, and one of his hands doesn't make it
Right.
in
So
time.
those parts reassemble themselves into the Iron Giant, but he's minus a hand. He's missing a hand. And then
He says
Hogarth,
actually bye with his hand that's lost, and then he realizes it.
he doesn't have the hand. And then Hogarth is inside, he's talking to his mom, right? And his mom is looking at Hogarth, and Hogarth's looking into the other room, and what walks by through the other room?
His hand.
Yeah, the Iron Giant's hand walks through. So that is a very funny moment. And it's foreshadowing because it sets up at the end of the movie when the scene that you were talking about with the missile, or the bomb you called it, in the Iron Giant, sacrifices himself to save the people.
But then at the end, it's so great because his hands and his legs and everything come back.
Right. You see that little, you're calling it a satellite, I think it's an antenna with the light. But I think you're right. I think that's what it is. And it's lighting up, and you know that, okay, the parts are going to reassemble themselves and he's going to be okay. There's a lot going on in this movie. It appeals to kids in one sense, but there's also a message here, and it's a pretty big message, and hopefully, you had some takeaway with that. And what did you get out of the movie? If it had a message, like when you read a book at school and they tell you, what was the message of the book, did you get a message out of this film? What was it?
That you can have really great friendship even though someone can be different.
Right. So just because someone is different doesn't make them bad or worse than you or better than you. They're just different. And we shouldn't always be afraid of what we don't know. Right? Sometimes we act quickly because we're unfamiliar with something and we could be scared of it, and we immediately give it the attribute of being bad or evil, and that's not always the case, right? So there's some takeaway there. But was there an enjoyment factor for you? Did you enjoy the film?
Yeah.
You said something to me when we were watching it about the pacing. Do you want to?
Yeah, at the beginning, for me, it was just a little bit slow. But then after that, it got, quicker
It picked up.
because the Iron Giant was there, and then, yeah.
Right. So it took it a while to get up to speed, and I would say that's similar to E.T. When we talked about E.T., it was the same thing. It took a while for Elliot to get together with E.T., and then the film takes off once the kids get together with E.T. But I agree with that. All right, yummy or crummy for you?
Yummy.
And yummy for me. And I'm looking forward to the game this weekend because the Iron Giants are going to play the Iron Eagles. I got money on Lou Gossett Jr. There's a joke in there.